Mr. Mulrooney probably didn't win any votes with his speech. That may well be the point of the exercise here is to make sure you don't lose any votes. And I don't think that would have cost any.
Well, a lot of people here may not have any great enthusiasm for anything, but they are thinking about winnability, and they're saying, well, whoever is going to be the next leader.
Her hand, I think he was looking very strongly towards some English-speaking Canadians that might join.
He may not have set any barns afire, but who do we know that has, in spite of what Senator Davey said, who do we know that does that on television?
Well, we have to find out how he impressed various sections of this party, and certainly one element that's very important is the youth delegation. About a third of the entire group of delegates down on the floor. Bob Evans has one of them. Bob?
This is Mark Dorian, who's the leader of the youth for Mulrooney.
On a scale of 1 to 5, about 5, I would think.
1 to 5, it would be about
1 to 10, I mean, and about 5.
Half and half. Thanks very much. Phil Jarvis, Clark supporter and the Conservative member from Perth. And now back to Peter.
Okay, Bill, thanks very much. We've now heard the reaction from the Mulrooney camp. Understandably, everybody in Quebec's speech was good. I think it's fair to say it was a better speech than he gave in '76, but it also gets into that same old question of whether it gets new votes or whether you're just taking the risk of losing. He probably didn't lose any of the votes he already has.
Certainly not, Peter. I think the speech essentially was directed against those undecided, those uncommitted voters, thinking very much of what's going to happen after that first ballot. He'll hold his supporters then. What happens after the first ballot? Can he draw in some of the delegates supporting the minor players here, the minor candidates? That's the strategy. Whether this speech does it or not, I think, is an open question.
All right, next up on the speech list is Michael Wilson, who's perceived to be in either 4th or 5th place at the moment. But we can't keep re-emphasizing the fact as new viewers join us from across the country at different times during the evening. But on the floor, as you can see there, on the floor of the Civic Center here in Ottawa, most of the signs are either Mulrooney signs, like you see down there now, or Clark signs. And the reason being is they have
previous position with the Quebec delegates here. There's no hope of that. If
Mulrooney of getting that floor covered in signs. Let's get some more reaction from the Mulrooney camp. Sam Wakeham, a former Tory MP, is with Mike Duffy. Mike?
Peter, as you've mentioned, Sam Wakeham was a Conservative MP during the Clark government. He was also Brian Mulrooney's roommate when they went to university together. Mr. Wakeham, you've been very close to the Mulrooney campaign, his closest personal friend. What does Brian Mulrooney do tonight? Now he's made his speech, he's gotten a response here. What's your strategy next?
John Gamble is not in his seat yet. He's not due to speak for some time, but it is somewhat unusual because all of the other candidates are here to hear the other speeches. The Claude Duprat, the co-chairman, is back up on the stand now to announce the beginning of the Michael Wilson demonstration. But in the meantime, let's again find out from one of the delegates down on the floor the effect of Brian Mulrooney's speech. Dennis McIntosh has one of the undecided people with him.
Lloyd, we have Adele Haynes-Wisnowski from New Westminster, Coquitlam. And again, what did you think of Brian Mulrooney's speech?
I liked it. I thought he was very good. I liked him. I did.
Okay, thank you, Vic. Back to Lloyd.
The warheads were...
Who can unite the party? The country.
And giving him a chance.
Well, I guess we should go talk to her a little later to see which way her undecided is going to be decided. If she is a genuinely undecided voter, then I presume she would want to hear the rest as well.
Who can express himself in our language and understand it.
The reason I am here is to introduce to you a man who can unite this party and this country. He's been a fine businessman, he's a member of parliament, and a cabinet minister, was a cabinet minister. He is bilingual. I know it because I've been with him in small and large groups when French was the only language spoken. Mr. Chairman, I want to present the man to lead us, a man we can all trust, the Honorable Michael Wilson.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to get on board Michael Wilson, Unity Express.
Billy Airline.
in order of joining Confederate.
All right, the demonstration now starting for Michael Wilson, and this could be a crucial speech tonight. Michael Wilson receiving in around the fourth spot with the potential movement for him that he could pull off a Joe Clark scenario of 76 where he comes out of the back of the pack at the last moment. But this speech will be crucial for Wilson, David, because he still has this image of being extremely bland.
It was very interesting, Peter, that he chose to have a conservative from Quebec introduce him. He obviously wants to show that in spite of his weakness in Quebec, he has some strength there.
All right, let's watch a bit of the Wilson demonstration, because this is all part of a hoopla of the political convention. The Wilson Express, as it's called, and they're coming in province by province. You can be sure that those aren't all delegates there. Wilson's not expected to have that many, but you never know. Anything can happen in this game. But let's watch a little bit of the Wilson Express, the political hoopla of this convention.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Michael Wilson.
Stressed in other speeches. He really hit the unity thing heavy, which he's been doing lately. He's doing it in Quebec more than anywhere else, but he really hit it heavy here. Those things out. In the past, it's been all small business. It's been more on economic measures, and those are in there, and he certainly hasn't forgot about that. But there was just a mere mention of the problems of the Crown corporations, something that he has dwelt on dealt with extensively in the past. I have with me Frank Miller, who's the Treasurer of Ontario. Mr. Miller, what did you think of that speech?
I thought he gave it very well. That was the most impressive part to me. The content was good, but more importantly, the style was excellent. He also surprised me by having a good deal of French in there, and speaking a bit myself, I was impressed that he got a pretty good accent, pretty good delivery. Sure, the content's important in a situation like this, but I'd argue more important than content is really style. That style got through and it was good.
Do you think he picked up any votes?
Yes, I do. I think he's been picking up votes quite quickly in the last couple of days.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Back to you, Peter.
Okay, Al, thank you. Let's bring Norman Atkins into the conversation again now, especially because of Mike Wilson. Norman, much talk about the big blue machine being behind Wilson, making sure he's not embarrassed on the first ballot, so you must have been taking particular interest in that speech. What did you think of it?
Well, I think it was longer than I expected, but I thought it was pretty good, and I thought he finished very strongly. And I think, you know, for those people in Ontario who want to see Michael Wilson finish strongly, that he will get some additional support.
It was interesting, Norman. He put a lot of emphasis on French there, spoke quite a lot of French, more than was expected, was introduced by a conservative who was a Peter Blakey organizer in Quebec. Now, maybe what Wilson's trying to do here is angle some of that Blakey support. The former party president, the candidate who dropped out in mid-campaign, they said that he had about, what, 40 or 50 delegates in Quebec. Are these the Quebec delegates he's going after?
Indeed they are, and the fact is that he was down in Quebec last week, and he came back feeling very good about the experience he had in Quebec. He was very encouraged, so that I think that he feels that he might gain some ground there as well.
But let's be realistic. At this moment, he's not a major player in this race, and that speech, it may be one of the best ones he's given in the campaign, but it's not going to be one that suddenly hundreds of delegates are going to rush to him on.
Not hundreds, Peter, but I think he could be in a position where he then can deal tomorrow with some strength in terms of what he does after the first ballot.
Okay, let's get some more reaction from the floor now, down to Don Newman. Don?
Peter, you've heard of close quarters. Well, this is close quarters with Alan Lawrence, the former Solicitor General. It's really crowded down here. Mr. Lawrence is from Ontario. He was a candidate for the Ontario leadership of the Conservative Party, I guess 12 years ago now. But he is supporting John Crosbie. I thought Michael Wilson had become the Ontario candidate here, Mr. Lawrence. Why are you with Crosbie?
No, I think Ontario, as usual, is split all over the lot. I think there's a real horse race, and of course, I think that's reflected in the province of Ontario.
The being split all over the lot, doesn't that in a way weaken Ontario's position, though? Wouldn't he be better behind one candidate?
Well, Ontario's just so big. No, I don't think so. I think, as always, the delegates from Ontario like a little diversity. They're split all over the lot, as I say. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think the rest of the country would then gang up on Ontario if there was anything else done.
Have you heard the story that the Big Blue Machine, though, is backing Mr. Wilson?
Well, I've heard that some professional PR people have moved in the last week or so behind Mr. Wilson, and I think that's great. Certainly, some of the, the smooth image-producing things there that we've seen, we're part of that, and I think that's part of it.
Well, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Mulrooney have just been shaking hands right up here behind us. Do you think that there's some kind of a deal cooking in those camps if Mr. Wilson doesn't go too well?
Oh, I don't think so. There's a great deal of friendliness between all of these candidates. That's the way it should be. We're all part of one family. I don't think I would be very surprised if there's any deals cooking along any line at the moment.
So the story that it's ABC, everybody against Clark, that isn't a deal of some sort, you don't say?
Gosh, no. For instance, we in the Crosbie camp hope to get some support out of the Clark camp if Clark holds. So,
how would you rate the speeches so far of Mr. Wilson, Mr. Mulrooney?
Well, I really, I don't want to say anything. The best is yet to come, I think.
Okay, thank you, Alan Lawrence, former Solicitor General, John Crosbie supporter. Peter, back to you.
Okay, and of course the reason that Al Lawrence is saying the best is yet to come because his man, John Crosbie, is coming up next. He's due in the next few minutes, and we understand quite an entrance prepared for the Crosbie people. We're going to have to watch this Mulrooney friendliness stuff and the unity of the party because he's popping up there in Mike Wilson's box to shake his hand after his speech. Last night he was over in the Crosbie tent shaking hands. There's always the danger you can push this stuff a little too far.
Well, that was very much the case, Peter, yesterday with Crosbie. He went over to the Crosbie tent. The Crosbie supporters were very unhappy because Brian Mulrooney brought his supporters and seemed to be taking over the meeting.
Okay, Crosbie demonstration starting now. Where are we going? Down to Mike Duffy. Mike Duffy on the floor.
Peter, John Crosbie's got a 15-foot-long blimp that he's going to bring out and fly around this hall as his demonstrators, as his workers get set to show their support for the Newfoundland candidate. It's something that's been cooked up by Tom McMillan, Ted Aver, and some of the people who work on Bill Davis's Big Blue Machine. They're responsible for tonight's Crosbie demonstration. They decided to go for something really dramatic. You see it there, sitting, waiting to be brought into the hall. It's going to come in, I guess, after Jean Piggott does her nomination, which will be seconded by Fern Dubé, the former Minister of Finance in New Brunswick.
I will be marking my ballot for John Crosbie. John Crosbie has the considerable brains, the warm heart, and the intestinal fortitude to lead this party, and through it to lead this nation. Your vote tomorrow carries with it the future of millions of Canadians, for them and for us. It represents the only way to redeem the future that we all dream about. John Crosbie not only stands for that future, but he can lead us into it and guide us through it with confidence, intelligence, and compassion. Together with Don Getty, former Minister of Energy for the province of Alberta, who couldn't be with us this evening, I nominate for leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, John Carwell Crosbie.
I don't know how long they want to keep this thing waiting here.
I am seconding the candidacy of someone.
Ted Aver is one of John Crosbie's advancement. What is this all about?
Well, it's just part of our demonstration, Michael. I think we're all having a little fun here, and we thought we'd do a little bit different. Bring a little excitement with our dirigible, and I don't think anybody else has seen it, and it's got all eyes on it, John, and the demonstration.
This thing doesn't have any wires attached to it. How are you running it?
Actually, it's run by remote control, Mike, and it's going to do a little circle around the building and then lead our delegation out.
It looks like it's on its way to attack the CBC anchor booth. It's just tangling with TVA, the private Quebec network. It's gone off into the corner, and I don't know, Peter, if this... Well, it's moored sort of in the corner next to the TVA booth. Anyway, it was an attention getter. Nobody's paying too much attention now to all of these Crosbie supporters who are marching on the floor. They're trying to get this blimp back in business to see if they can keep it from heading for the buckwheat. It's now over the press table area, and it's stuck. I don't know whether this is a bad omen for the Crosbie campaign or whether it's something that will be seen as having been a mistake here tonight. But I tell you, Ted Aver's gone back to some of the other advanced men, and the look on his face is not... Now he's aiming at you, Peter. This is incredible.
Okay,
Peter,
Mike.
Here he comes.
Yeah, it's coming. But I'll tell you, I just hope that John Crosbie's speech has got a little more going for it than that blimp, because it doesn't have the air. I don't know if because the air is so thick in here because of the heat, but that blimp is certainly having its problems. Anyway, Dave.
You've got to hand it to Crosbie. His people have certainly stolen the floor show so far with that dirigible, Peter.
Well, as we remember from '76, there were a few candidates who came in a very special way and not just coming in by walking. Joe Clark, of course, in '76 came in an open landau. The Crosbie blimp now is starting to get a bit of air, but the pressure on John Crosbie now as he makes his way up to the podium, and he's about ready to start his speech. This speech, clearly, this man is one of the front runners, the second of the three that we've seen so far. But Crosbie tonight will have to deliver. In the past 2 weeks, he has had that question raised about his attitude towards French, his attitude towards Quebec, and he will be trying to allay those fears on the part of some of the delegates tonight in this speech, but he'll also have a lot more to talk about.
Well, of course, his advisors are saying, Peter, that he's going to come out with 3 or 4 lines in French just to show that he may massacre the language, but he's prepared to take a crack at it. He's probably in the speech going to promise that he's going to get right out there if he's chosen as conservative leader, take French lessons, but come fully bilingual by the time he's Prime Minister.
All right, the John Crosbie blimp making its exit, and knowing John Crosbie the way we do and the speeches he gives, I'm sure he's going to have a remark about that as his speech starts, which should be any moment now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Madame et Monsieur, the Crosbie shuttle was going to take us right to 24 Sussex Drive.
I am a Canadian, and I'm proud of it. I come from Newfoundland, the latest territory to integrate into this magnificent country, Canada.
Party in Canada today which could field so many first-class candidates for leadership. I am proud to be a member of this party. I am confident of its future. I want first to thank Jean Piggott, Fernand Dubé, and Don Getty for placing my name in nomination before this historic convention. This is a moment I shall treasure forever. True, I shall treasure this moment even more if I am successful tomorrow. I want also to thank my wife, Jane, my partner for 30 years, for her tremendous assistance to me throughout my career and throughout this campaign. I want also to express my personal thanks and admiration for those who have organized and run this great convention so well under the direction of Peter Elzinga. Ours is a party of vitality, of open discussion, of spirit, of the freedom fighter. The Canadian people are watching us closely as we select a leader they earnestly want to be the next Prime Minister. Tonight, I will deal with two sets of challenges. The first are the challenges that face our party. The second are the challenges that face me if you select me as our leader. First, the party. We must emerge from this great convention known not only for concern for economic growth, but known also for humanity, for compassion, and for our essential decency. The Canadian public now supports conservative views and demands that conservative policies be implemented in our economic and financial life. To be a conservative today is to be in the middle of the political road. I intend to move Canada forward through conservative initiatives that will improve the lot of every Canadian, especially young Canadians who must be given the chance to earn a living and to face life with optimism. The greatest priority for our party, once returned to government, must be economic growth. The country demands it. Without economic growth, we will not have the means to express our humanity or to act on our compassion. For growth and jobs, we must have an economic system that permits economic freedom. Unless we have an economic system that permits the free flow of capital, the acquiring of profits, the right to private property, the right to competition in the marketplace, our society will not protect the freedom we value so greatly. It is only with a privately owned economic sector that we can or may a society provide and protect human civil liberties. There is no society that has no privately owned economic sector that has any human or civil liberties enshrined therein. What our party must do is to return to the people of Canada through our actions the basis for the belief of continuing progress in this century, the basis for the return to the belief that their children and the children of their children will have a better opportunity than ever they had themselves. We have all the ingredients here in Canada. We have the natural resources. We have the skilled people. We have the opportunities waiting to be grasped. What then do we lack? We lack proper direction. What do we need? The implementation of conservative policies, a return to the creation of conditions which encourage the private sector to do its job of building again in Canada, of providing jobs, 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 and then again more employment for our people. Our party must ensure, as Bob Stanfield pointed out on September the 8th, 1967, that the pursuit of victory is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. Canadians wish to join and support a political party which is a clear alternative to the current leadership of Canada. Canadians want a party that invites them to be part of the process, invites them to participate equally, regardless of their sex, race, language, or creed, that provides them the opportunity to create a system that permits economic freedom, that rewards the entrepreneur, the initiator, the risk-taker, and the doer. Our party must recognize and never forget that women have played a vital role in Canada from frontier times to the present. We need the contribution that all Canadians can make to our future. We can no longer afford to ignore the potential contribution of any group of Canadians. This is especially true of Canadian women who must overcome the problems in the new frontier of their achieving equality in all phases of life. Our party must continue to promote roles and opportunities for women in the public sector of this country. We must start at the top with the election of a strong group of women Tory MPs in our next Parliament. We have Flora. We have Flora. We have Pat. We have Jennifer. We need more, many, many more like them. The final challenge to our party is to continue to recognize that in our party, as in this nation, unity is only possible where diversity is permitted. We have to continue to be a party that truly represents the peoples and the regions of Canada. We must not simply welcome diversity, but we must provide the forum to reconcile and accommodate differences. That is one of our important roles. If you select me as your leader, I will listen as I lead. Now, I want to pay tribute to the work done by our parliamentary caucus for the last several months. Those who have not run for the leadership have served our party well. They have proven that we leadership candidates are dispensable. Led by Eric Nielsen, the Yukon National Monument, they have taken a terrible toll of that fearful group now wallowing for their last months in the trough of Liberal government. Thank you, Eric. I don't mean thank you for that ovation, Eric. I mean thank you for the work you've done in the House of Commons. As leader, I want both the policy input of our riding associations and our federal caucus. These challenges for our party will be met. Equally important are the challenges I face if you select me as your leader.
Don't understand French within 2 years, and he felt that every Canadian should do the same. But in through that presentation on the French question, he managed to take a couple of swipes at Clark at the same time.
Two quite important swipes, Peter. First of all, he mentioned and praised Richard Hatfield, Bob Stanfield, Robarts for their openness to French Canada, but never once mentioned Clark, the man who's perhaps done more than any of those to make the party open to Quebec. Another important reference, he alluded to the Canada plus Quebec signs that a lot of those Clark supporters are showing. He said his vision of Canada is quite different. He talked of Canada being the sum of its parts.
All right, John Crosbie making his way now back to his box, and he must be happy and his advisors happy. Whit Fraser has been following him throughout this campaign. Whit, give us a breakout on that speech. Let's compare with the ones you've been hearing all along.
Peter, there's no doubt that John Crosbie is a tremendous platform speaker, but there is also no doubt that he was probably never as good as he was just a few moments ago. He really came on stronger than he could in any of the speeches he gave, although he was quite forceful throughout. Of course, the one noticeable thing is that Crosbie did not crack any jokes. He did not go to any of the humor that he has used throughout. No doubt his organizers were thinking that Crosbie must come across here at this convention as a serious candidate. They had some concerns all throughout, of course, with the jokester image. Well, and that had worked to his advantage. People liked him to crack jokes. They liked the humor. They liked the vicious attacks that the humor sometimes would break down on Trudeau. We're going to go right now. We're going to try and bring down Mr. Lassinger. Mr. Lassinger.
John Lassinger, of course, is the Crosbie campaign chairman. Mr. Lassinger. Mr. Lassinger. Mr. Lassinger is the campaign chairman. How much work did you do on this speech? Why did you do it the way you did it? I mean, he didn't use any of the humor?
He used a little bit of his humor with, but we wanted him to look and sound like a prime minister. We felt that that's what the situation demanded.
Did you run a risk speaking French?
When John Crosbie puts his mind to anything, you don't really have much of a risk. He worked hard at it, but just to show that he can do it, and he will do it.
Very happy with the speech, I think.
Oh, I'm some happy.
What about the reaction he got throughout the hall to the French? It seemed that it went into other camps.
That's right, it did. And people to the left of us here and beyond were very politely appreciative of it and applauded, and I was very delighted to see that.
You see, in the campaign, he worried about speaking French, that he may muff it in French, that he may be seen as a token French, that was better to address it straight on. I'm not fluent, I can't speak French, and try and wing it on one language. Why did you change that?
Well, I don't think it's changed. All I can say is we felt the situation demanded that. That's the text that he gave tonight.
Do you think you could overcome any damage he may have done himself in Quebec when he made that remark about not speaking French or Chinese?
I've been picking up Quebec delegates for the last week and a half, We've got a lot of support out of Quebec. We're not going to sweep the province, but we're not going to be embarrassed either.
John Lassinger, thank you very much. Okay, let's go over now to Bill Casey.
Thanks, Whit. I'm with Clark.